One more question. So, like you mentioned, a lot of things in the startup realm have to do with failure. So I'm sure you've experienced a lot of failure itself.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage that failure to the point where it helps you grow rather than demotivating you?
That's a really good question. So I played poker really successfully for a decent chunk of my life. And the art of poker is to learn how to limit your losses. Okay. So, if you're sitting at a poker table, everything has a probability of happening. Right?
Right.
Even if you get dealt, the best possible hand you can be dealt, pocket aces, and you're going against the worst possible hand, 7-2 offsuit,
Okay.
there's still a probability you're going to lose that hand.
Right.
Right? And so the key is to understand how to move probability in your favor. Okay, so maybe I'm going to bet really high to where it's too expensive for that person to take that big risk, and so they fold, right?
Okay.
And even then, there's still a probability that they might call and you lose, right? And so at the end of the day, it's all about understanding how to put the odds in your favor as much as possible and recognize when the odds are turning so that you can limit what your losses are. And that's why learning to fail young is really important because as you get older, as you get more responsibilities, the stakes are higher, right?
Right.
So, for example, I now have a 14-month-old. The stakes are higher if I fail, right? And so having experience failing now makes it to where I can recognize different things to watch for, to say, I've got to be careful with that. I got to be careful here. Oh, this is not working. How do I cut my losses and limit my losses as much as possible, both for myself and for my investors, right? It's really important.
Okay. So kind of going back to the poker analogy, right? When you're playing poker, it's all based on luck to an extent, is it not?
No.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, poker is not based on luck, right? There's a perceived luck because of the probability nature, okay?
Right.
And this goes back to understanding how to operate in uncertainty, right? Life is uncertain,
right?
So at the end of the day, it's all about understanding the person that you're sitting across from, okay? The decisions that they have made since they sat down at that table, okay? You can recognize, is this person, really aggressive or are they really tight, right? And how they bet. So when they bet, do they bet really large sums of money? Do they do small bets? Okay, when are they betting and when are they not betting? Okay, are they loose and tight with the cards that they play? So do they only play really, really good cards, or do they play good and bad cards? And having that information allows you to understand, how I make decisions when I'm in a hand against that person, right? And so if there's somebody, for example, who only plays really good cards and they're really aggressive, when they are betting really high, it's likely that they have a really good hand.
Yeah.
So I need to make decisions understanding they have a really good hand. Okay? So what that might mean is I need to be quick to fold, or, hey, I actually have, a 40% chance of getting an amazing hand here. I'm willing to take this, call this big bet because I know they have a good hand. And if this 40% chance hit, I'm going to take a lot of money from them. Right? So using their decision making and operating in uncertainty, right, are skills that we've talked about that are really important. Poker actually is the perfect personification of those assets. So that's why it's actually considered a skill game and not a luck game.
Very interesting. Would you recommend everyone to learn a little bit more about poker and test it out?
So that's a tough one because, there are people who it can be used as gambling. Right? And so if you have a gambling nature to you, I do not recommend checking out poker. Okay? because there are people who go in and just say, hey, I'm willing to, like, I get a high off of risk, and so I take unnecessary risks, and you're going to lose a lot of money if you do that playing poker, right? And so I always caution people, right? But if you don't have kind of a gambling nature, there are ways to play poker for free, okay? Especially if you do it in the spirit of learning. I think it is an incredible skill, but there are risks. You have to know yourself well enough to know whether or not you should go down that endeavor.
Wow. So you really used poker to really understand human nature, I guess, and how to understand what people are thinking.
Exactly.